The old canal outside the village had always been surrounded by fear and silence. Locals called it the Haunted Canal because strange things were said to happen there after sunset. No one dared to go near it at night. Elders often warned children that the water was not ordinary. It remembered those who entered it and never truly let them leave. A young vlogger named Ehsan, known for exploring abandoned and haunted places, heard the stories and decided to investigate. Hoping to capture real paranormal evidence, he arrived at the canal just before midnight with his camera and flashlight. The air felt unusually cold, and even the insects seemed silent. As he began recording, the still water suddenly rippled without any wind. Ehsan laughed nervously, assuming it was just an animal beneath the surface. But when he reviewed his camera screen, he noticed a dark shape moving slowly underwater, something too large to be a fish. Moments later, wet footprints appeared on the muddy ground beside him, forming one by one as if an invisible person was walking out of the canal. His breathing grew heavy. He turned around quickly, but there was nothing there. The camera flickered and briefly shut off. When it turned back on, the water looked darker, almost black. A faint whisper echoed around him, sounding like distant cries for help. Panic set in as he felt a chilling presence behind him. Suddenly, an icy hand grabbed his ankle. Ehsan screamed as he was violently dragged toward the canal. The camera fell sideways, still recording. The next morning, villagers discovered his camera lying near the edge. The final footage showed bubbling water and several shadowy figures rising slowly toward the lens before the video abruptly ended. For decades, the canal at the edge of the village had been avoided after dark. People believed it was cursed, but no one spoke openly about why. Some said travelers disappeared there, while others claimed the water whispered names during the night. Despite the warnings, curiosity always found its victims. One evening, Ehsan returned to the canal after hearing rumors of glowing lights seen above the water. Determined to prove the stories false, he set up his camera on a tripod and began filming a live exploration. The moon reflected faintly on the canal's surface, creating an eerie silver glow. As he walked along the narrow path, he noticed the sound of dripping water behind him, slow and rhythmic. Turning around, he saw nothing except the calm canal. Suddenly, his camera microphone picked up faint voices. When he replayed the audio, overlapping whispers could be heard, as if many people were speaking underwater. The temperature dropped sharply. Mist began forming above the canal, swirling unnaturally. Within the fog, vague human shapes appeared for brief moments before dissolving again. Ehsan tried to stay calm, convincing himself it was only imagination. Then his flashlight flickered and went out. In the darkness, the water started splashing violently despite no visible movement. Panic rising, he grabbed the camera to leave, but stopped when he saw a pale face just beneath the surface staring directly at him. The face opened its eyes. A loud splash followed, and unseen hands pulled at his clothes. Ehsan struggled, shouting for help, but the empty field swallowed his voice. The camera fell, capturing only chaotic movement and the sound of water. The next day, villagers found the equipment abandoned. The recorded footage ended with the canal completely still, except for ripples forming as if something had just gone back underwater. The canal had a rule everyone in the village followed: never look into the water after midnight. According to old stories, anyone who stared too long would see something staring back. Most people dismissed it as superstition until strange disappearances began years ago. Ehsan, obsessed with uncovering dark legends, arrived at the canal exactly at midnight to test the myth. Carrying only a camera and a flashlight, he stood at the edge and began narrating his experience. The night was unnaturally quiet, with no wind or animal sounds. At first, nothing happened. The water remained calm like black glass. Smiling at the camera, Ehsan leaned closer, pointing the lens directly toward the canal. Suddenly, faint ripples formed even though nothing had touched the surface. As he zoomed in, the camera revealed something horrifying, a reflection that did not match reality. Instead of his own face, another figure stared back from the water. Its expression was emotionless, its eyes dark and hollow. Ehsan quickly stepped back, breathing heavily. When he checked the water again with his own eyes, he saw only his normal reflection. Confused but determined, he reviewed the footage. The strange face appeared clearly on camera, slowly smiling. A low whisper surrounded him, repeating his name from different directions. The flashlight dimmed, and the air turned freezing cold. Behind him, splashing sounds echoed, as though someone was climbing out of the canal. Too afraid to turn around, Ehsan began walking backward, keeping his eyes on the water. Suddenly, a hand emerged from the surface and grabbed his reflection, and at the same moment, an invisible force pulled Ehsan forward in real life. The camera dropped, recording the dark sky while distant screams echoed. Later, villagers recovered the device. The last frame showed the canal perfectly still, except for one extra reflection standing at the edge, even though Ehsan was gone. The canal was once a lifeline for the village, but after a mysterious night many years ago, it became a place of fear. People claimed that anyone who heard splashing there after midnight should run without looking back. Those who ignored the warning were never seen again. Ehsan arrived, determined to uncover the truth behind these disappearances. Setting up his camera near the broken bridge above the canal, he began recording the dark surroundings. The faint sound of flowing water echoed through the empty fields, creating an uneasy atmosphere. While explaining the legend to his viewers, he suddenly heard a loud splash behind him. He turned quickly, shining his flashlight across the canal, but the water was calm. Assuming it was a fish, he continued filming, until another splash came, closer this time. Then another. The sounds began moving along the canal, as if something unseen was swimming toward him beneath the surface. Ehsan's voice trembled as he followed the noise with his camera. The water started bubbling violently, breaking the silence of the night. Without warning, a childlike laugh echoed across the canal. Frozen in fear, Ehsan slowly stepped backward. His camera captured ripples forming into circular patterns, almost like hands pressing upward from below. The laughter turned into desperate crying. Shadows appeared beneath the water, twisting and reaching upward. Ehsan realized the canal might be replaying the final moments of those who drowned there. Suddenly, wet handprints appeared on the bridge railing beside him. One by one, they moved closer. His flashlight flickered rapidly before going out completely. In the darkness, something grabbed his shoulder. The camera fell, pointing toward the canal as splashing and terrified screams filled the recording. By morning, villagers found only the camera still running. The final footage showed the water calm again, except for small hands slowly sinking back beneath the surface. The villagers believed the canal was alive. They said it chose its victims carefully, calling them through dreams before claiming them forever. Many ignored these stories, but Ehsan began experiencing strange nightmares days before visiting the place. Dreams of dark water and unseen voices whispering his name. Driven by curiosity, he went to the canal at night, determined to confront whatever haunted his sleep. As he started recording, he mentioned the recurring dreams, joking nervously that maybe the canal wanted him there. The wind suddenly stopped, leaving an unnatural silence hanging in the air. Standing near the edge, Ehsan noticed gentle ripples forming despite the still surroundings. His camera battery began draining unusually fast, forcing him to switch to night mode. Through the lens, faint figures appeared beneath the water, moving slowly like people walking at the bottom. Confused, he lowered the camera and looked with his own eyes, but saw nothing. When he raised it again, the figures were closer, their shapes clearer. They seemed to be reaching upward. A soft whisper echoed behind him, repeating the same words. "You came back." Ehsan turned quickly, but the path behind him was empty. His breathing grew heavy as drops of water began falling around him, even though the sky was clear. Suddenly, his phone started playing audio by itself, recordings of his own voice speaking while he slept. In the recording, He could be heard walking and mumbling about the canal as if someone had called him there. Realization struck him too late. The nightmares were not dreams. They were invitations. The water surged forward unnaturally, soaking his feet. Invisible hands tightened around his legs, pulling him toward the canal. He screamed as the camera slipped from his grip. The next morning, villagers found footprints leading into the water, but none coming back. The final recording captured faint whispers thanking him for returning. The canal divided the village into two parts, but after sunset, no one dared to cross the old wooden path above it. People believed something waited beneath the water, watching anyone who came too close at night. Strange lights had recently been seen moving along the canal, attracting Ehsan's attention. Determined to capture proof, Ehsan reached the canal late at night. He noticed small lantern-like lights floating just above the water surface. At first, they looked beautiful, gently drifting in silence. He assumed they were reflections or insects and began filming excitedly. As he followed the lights along the canal bank, they suddenly stopped moving. One by one, they turned toward him. Ehsan felt uneasy, realizing the lights were reacting to his presence. The air grew colder, and the floating lights slowly dimmed, revealing pale shapes beneath them, faces just under the water, their eyes glowing faintly. Shocked, Ehsan stumbled backward, nearly dropping his camera. A distant sound of chains dragging echoed through the darkness. The water began to swirl violently, and the glowing faces moved closer to the surface. Some appeared expressionless, while others looked trapped in silent screams. His camera screen suddenly showed a different angle, as if something underwater was filming him from below. Panic spread through him as he realized the canal was watching back. The lights rose higher into the air, circling around him like guiding spirits. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then all the lights rushed downward into the canal at once, creating a massive splash. A strong force pulled Ehsan forward. He tried to escape, but muddy hands emerged from the water, gripping his arms tightly. His screams echoed across the empty fields before being swallowed by the darkness. The next day, villagers found glowing marks along the canal bank. His camera footage ended with dozens of lights slowly sinking into the deep black water. The canal was known for one terrifying warning: never answer if someone calls your name from the water. Villagers claimed the canal copied familiar voices to lure people closer. Most dismissed it as folklore until strange audio recordings began spreading online. Ehsan discovered an old video recorded near the canal where a man claimed to hear his mother calling him, even though she had died years earlier. Intrigued, Ehsan decided to recreate the experiment and record sounds near the canal at midnight. He placed sensitive microphones along the bank and started filming. At first, only the sound of flowing water filled the silence. Minutes passed with nothing unusual. Feeling disappointed, he prepared to leave. Then his recorder picked up a faint voice. It softly called his name. Ehsan froze. The voice sounded exactly like his younger brother's, warm and familiar. Nervously smiling, he assumed someone was playing a prank. He called back, asking who was there, but the fields remained empty. The voice came again, clearer this time, begging for help from the canal. Against his better judgment, Ehsan stepped closer to the edge, shining his flashlight into the dark water. Ripples spread outward, and another voice joined, then another. Soon dozens of voices overlapped, all calling his name in different tones. The sound grew louder, echoing inside his head. His camera began distorting the audio, turning the voices into deep, unnatural whispers. The water started rising slightly, as if responding to his presence. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the canal and grabbed his wrist. Ehsan screamed, trying to pull away, but more hands emerged, dragging him forward. The microphone captured his desperate cries before abruptly cutting into silence. The next morning, villagers recovered the equipment. The final audio recording contained only one clear sentence spoken in Ehsan's voice: "Someone else is coming tonight." The canal had one mystery no one could explain. Every year on the same night, the water level rose without rain. Villagers locked their doors on that date, believing the canal relived a forgotten tragedy. Curious and fearless, Hassan chose that exact night to investigate. Arriving just before midnight, he noticed the canal unusually quiet. Even the flowing water seemed slower, heavier. He began recording, explaining how locals believed the canal repeated the past like a memory trapped in time. As the clock struck 12, a deep rumbling sound came from beneath the water. The canal slowly overflowed, spilling onto the banks despite the clear sky. Hassan stepped back, confused but fascinated. Then shapes appeared within the rising water, blurred figures moving as if living through an invisible event. Through the camera lens, he saw people running, struggling, and reaching for help. It looked like a tragic accident replaying itself. Suddenly, ghostly screams echoed around him. The temperature dropped sharply, and wet footprints formed beside him, rushing toward the canal as though invisible victims were reliving their final moments. Hassan realized he was not just watching history. He was becoming part of it. The water surged higher, surrounding his feet. A shadowy figure emerged halfway from the canal, its face distorted with fear. It reached toward Hassan, silently begging for rescue. Instinctively, he grabbed the figure's hand, but instantly felt an overwhelming force pulling him forward. The visions vanished, replaced by violent waves dragging him into the freezing water. His camera floated briefly, still recording. The footage showed calm water returning as if nothing had happened. The next morning, villagers found the canal normal again. The only evidence left was the recording, showing Hassan standing among the ghostly figures, as if he had always been part of the tragedy. The canal had long been avoided after dusk. Stories spoke of shadowy figures dragging people underwater, and villagers warned that the water remembered anyone who came too close. Most dismissed it as superstition, but some had disappeared mysteriously over the years. Hassan, fascinated by urban legends, decided to explore the canal and record the experience. Arriving at midnight, he noticed the water unusually still, reflecting the moon like a dark mirror. He set up his camera and began narrating, joking nervously about the haunted reputation. Suddenly, a faint ripple disturbed the surface. Hassan leaned closer, his flashlight illuminating the water. He saw nothing, yet a soft whisper echoed around him, calling his name in a familiar tone. The sound was neither behind him nor in front, but everywhere at once. As he focused on the canal, shadowy forms slowly appeared beneath the water. Faces emerged briefly, eyes wide and mouths open, as if silently screaming. Each ripple made the shapes clearer, moving closer to the surface. His camera flickered, capturing the figures in horrifying detail. Drowned villagers from decades ago, frozen in expressions of terror. Panic overtook him when one shadow broke the surface, grabbing at the camera lens with a wet, clawed hand. Hassan tried to back away, but cold hands erupted from the water, pulling at his feet. The whispers grew louder, mixing with cries and laughter, disorienting him completely. He struggled, realizing the canal was not only alive, but feeding on fear. The camera fell, still recording, showing Hassan dragged toward the dark center of the canal. The water swallowed him, leaving nothing but ripples and distorted whispers. By morning, villagers found only the camera. The final footage revealed a single shadow standing on the bank, staring directly into the lens, as if waiting for the next victim to arrive. The canal was infamous for claiming those who ignore its warnings. Villagers said the water held memories of the drowned, and anyone who lingered after dark risked joining them. Hassan, a fearless vlogger, decided to uncover the truth once and for all. He arrived just after midnight, carrying a camera and a small flashlight. The air was unnaturally cold, and the water appeared darker than ink, reflecting nothing but shadows. Hassan began narrating to his audience, describing the canal's grim history. As he walked along the bank, he noticed movement under the water, subtle ripples, like someone swimming just beneath the surface. He focused his camera, catching glimpses of pale faces briefly appearing, then vanishing. A faint whisper echoed around him, repeating his name over and over, though the area was empty. Suddenly, the water surged violently. Figures emerged, half submerged, reaching toward him with twisted, wet hands. Esson stumbled backward, trying to escape, but the canal seemed alive, dragging him toward its center. His flashlight flickered, revealing dozens of shadowy faces beneath the surface, all staring upward. The camera fell as his feet were pulled into the cold, dark water. Desperate cries filled the night, mixing with the low, echoing whispers of those trapped long ago. His struggle grew weaker as invisible forces held him fast. By morning, villagers found only his camera lying on the muddy bank, still recording. The footage captured the water calm once more, yet ripples moved unnaturally, forming shapes of hands and faces just beneath the surface. In the final frame, a pale figure stood at the edge of the canal, staring directly into the lens, silently waiting for the next person foolish enough to approach. The canal had claimed another secret, and the legend grew darker with Esson's disappearance.